I'll go through all the preliminaries. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Can you guys see it all right?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, great. All right, I'll just go into presentation mode then. I guess I'll kind of kick this off. Hi, my name is Jason. I'm one of the main founding organizers for the group. We started the group in 2016, and we've really grown this past year, in large part due to Linda's undying efforts across the board. I want to show you what we've accomplished in the past year, and kind of welcome you to this Flutter Study Jam. I also wanted to extend a very warm thank you to Beza and Salil as well, because without their help, we wouldn't have nearly as much geographic diversity. Beza is from Turkey, and then we've got Salil's coming in from Berlin. So they're both staying up, very late to kind of help us out with this and grow the worldwide Flutter community. So I'll just, for the benefit of people that may not know about GDG Capital Region, I'll just go over a couple of preliminaries so you get an idea about what the group is all about. Possibly know GDG stands for Google Developer Groups, and it's a platform that's offered by Google to support community-run developer groups like what we have here. And they encourage us to, if Google does, when we stand up these GDGs, to sort of personalize them for the needs of the particular area that we live in. So for us, the primary goals of the Capital Region GDG are to create networking, collaboration, and entrepreneurial connections for technology enthusiasts in the Tri-City area, Albany, Troy, Schenectady, and also Saratoga. So, which comprises the entire Capital Region. It's a very extended, sort of suburban and even city center based area, right? We serve all that whole region. So we try to be a force to kind of draw together developers that are in these disparate areas to common events like this, and certainly having a virtual event really helps out with that. I'll just flash our code of conduct up here. I took this from the code of conduct that we actually put up for one of our DevFest conferences, and I'm sure everybody here is very well behaved, but the bottom line is just being excellent to each other and understanding and being empathetic. I think if we do that, we're going to have a really great event, and we probably don't need to read this line by line as a result. So here's the agenda. Well, Linda will go through that. Here's our team. Linda, I think I saw you had that there as well. So I'll just kind of go on to talk about some of the things that we did last year that kind of led us to this point, and let you know kind of diversity of events that we will hold typically. So here I'm showing it, and we have another one of these coming up in just I think it'd be either later in April or March or May of this year. We have another International Women's Day. But this is the one that we held last year. For comparison, we had 8 great speakers, a really packed agenda. Troy Web Consulting, which is Anthony DeBonis is on the line here on this call, was one of our key venue sponsors for that. Got everything together as far as recording of the event, hosting the event within his space, as well as getting chairs and places for people to kind of sit. And it was really great community effort. And we definitely team with a lot of great software development companies in the area to kind of pull this off. So here, I just wanted to show that we've been doing Flutter meetups pretty much steady since maybe last fall sometime, I think it was. We're definitely on quite a cadence with those right now, having them pretty much monthly at this point, and we're even getting to the point where we're branching out into the area.
February, Jason, sorry that I interrupted you.
Yeah, of course.
February last
year.
I
mean, you could take a look at the meetup.com site to see the frequency of these, but it's definitely been a very regular cadence, and the people that come to them regularly are very happy with them. And of course, we have the study jam tonight, which will be kind of a capstone event for people that are interested. And then we've also held the I Am Remarkable workshops in the past, and those are really focused on empowering women and underrepresented groups to celebrate their achievements, because the idea there is that we think in some cases maybe it's a good idea to lift those folks up, because they may not be as you want to say, like forthcoming with talking about their accomplishments. So these kind of workshops get them to feel a lot better about themselves, maybe, and really take pride in their accomplishments, and you know, really ensure that they could take those out into the world and not just keep them to themselves, but make an impact. We'll be having some more of those coming up too, I think, this year. We can find a suitable time. Last year and into the beginning of this year, also we held machine learning cloud study jams. Those are hands-on labs that were run at the Troy Center of Gravity, which is in Troy, New York, one of the areas that we serve. So we try to get around to the software development houses, and this one happens to be a makerspace that's in Troy. So they've hosted us there for these machine learning study jams. And so these are the areas that we went through: language processing, image processing, TensorFlow and GCP, and then the machine learning APIs. So in order from introductory to experience, we've kind of covered the gamut there and provided certifications and credits for those that wanted to work in this space. We're really proud of that. And here's just, I wanted to show quickly a gallery of the speakers that we had at our DevFest from last fall. And as you can see, we have some folks from out of our area: Bill Kennedy, Kevin Hoffman, Carmen. She wasn't able to make it. You know, you guys will recognize Scott Stoll, I'm sure, and Megan O'Keefe from Google. But then the rest of the folks on here are either people from the regional area or directly in the very local area in the tech community that we bring in to sort of augment the people that we bring in from out of town, so that people can get a very good blend of speakers on different topics. And we find that actually the mixing that goes on and the sharing of ideas is really heightened as a result of doing that. And so these are some of the sponsors that we had for DevFest, just to give you some idea, and some of the local development shops in the area represented here, including Janelle Group, who are our venue sponsor for our Flutter meetups. So, I mean, I guess with that, Linda, I think people have a pretty good idea about what we've done in the past and what we're all about. And I'll let you take it over from here and give you a presentation on the event itself that we're at tonight.
So fast. Once again, I was trying to help somebody to get in. Oh, look, yeah, I have mine also. Yay! Everybody else.
Dash is here.
I was trying to communicate with Stacy. I don't know if she got in the meantime. 1 second. She had problems. Chad, I don't know if he was able to. So I will share my screen 1 second. So so before we start, already Jason explained some of our rules. So yeah, if you are in the call with us, if you could try to don't use the dial via phone, because you might miss the presentation, and it's better if you use your PC with the audio instead. So as I said in the beginning, turn on your camera during the workshop to encourage face-to-face interaction among the participants, and keep your microphone muted during the presentation when our speakers talk. If you have any questions, you can add them on chat, and or we will see with our speakers if they prefer to have the questions in the moment that they are talking about that subject, or they want to leave the Q&A in the end. We will see how they prefer to do it. So this is, as Jason says, it's an inclusive meeting. Be excellent with each other. We have our code of conduct. If you like to read it, if you want, we can put a link just to make sure that everybody got it right. And so ask your questions in the Hangouts chat. Also, so you know, the meetup is recorded. So if you don't like to be recorded, please turn off your camera now. And there might be some technical or personal interruptions during our event, so we'll apologize in advance. This is our first meetup online. We are still testing, and we don't know what is coming. So only so. So the required materials for tonight, as you know, you will need a laptop, a computer, a charger. Make sure that your computer doesn't die. The Hangouts on the browser, a good internet connection, Flutter installed in your PC if we have enough time to do a lab tonight, or if you don't have a Flutter installed, I will send the link for the Dart pen so you can use it in the browser. It doesn't give you all the functionality as when you have it in your PC, but at least you can work a little bit along with us, and that's it. So also we had here, one second. So this is our agenda. We will have first Beza talk about the Flutterista group and how you can join it. After that, Salih will talk about effective app architecture and state management in Flutter. And we will have a Q&A section. And after that, we will see what is coming. So I will let our speakers now to present themselves. As you see here, we have
Are you sharing your screen? Should we see your screen?
I didn't share my screen. Which screen I'm sharing? I have so many screens here. Give me a second. I thought I did.
And let us know if there's a slide we should see.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for telling me that. Give me just a second. Where is my Hangout? It's in this other side. I cannot get out from exit. 1 second. I thought I'm sharing it. I'm presenting it. Give me just 1 second. Wait to figure out where is my Hangouts. I have 2 monitors, so that is the distraction. I don't know which one I am. So, Meet. Okay. Sorry, I apologize. I thought you see everything I see. Okay. Entire screen. Okay. Screen 2. Okay, so now you can see the screen. You should be able to see the screen. Can you see this on the screen?
Yeah. Yep.
With the,
looks good.
With the Flutter, with our speakers, right? Can you see it?
Yep,
okay.
That's what we see.
Okay, so before I was sharing these, but you didn't see it, unfortunately. So I was sharing our Meetup etiquette and our the requirements. So also to add to what Jason says, I don't know, did you mention about the Firebase study gems that we did this year?
I was covering the things which we did last year and not the things which are coming. So please do.
Okay. So before we
Linda,
start,
can you also present? That'll make the text a little bigger for you.
Yeah. You are right. Okay, so this year we already did a Firebase study jam in last month in March, and we will have another one in 2 weeks from now. If you like, it will be online. So if anyone would like to join us, you can go in Meetup. Now you are a member of our Meetup, so you know how to RSVP the next event. And in May, we will have our International Women Day. These are only the sponsors. So only yesterday we decided to go even with the International Women Day online. So we will start to do all the preparation for this event, being a bigger event. Last year we had like 55 people, right? I don't know if anybody can confirm. I think Anthony can. He was there. And who else was in the audience last year? So we assume that doing it online, the audience will be a little bit bigger. So we will have to work a little bit more to prepare everything. And soon we will announce our speakers. We already have the speakers. They already submitted the call for paper. And soon, by the end of the week, I'm assuming, or maximum next week, we will have all the details in this event also. Also, we are thinking to do another I am remarkable event in the near future. We have to see how it goes today. If it's if it's easy or it's not easy. So we will see after today. Next, what we have here. This is in the end. Okay, so now let's go to today. They are not really in the order. So today we have Beyza. She's a junior Flutter developer, GDG lead, and Women Tech Makers Ankara, one of the founders of Flutter Turkey, and Women Tech Makers Ambassador. So, and she will talk about the Flutterista group and how you can join it. So I will exit my sharing screen. And if you want to take over, Beyza, give me just 1 second because here I'm confused with all these strings. Which side it is? 1 second. Stop presenting. Okay.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Wait a second, please. I think. Everyone can see, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. That's great. Hi, everyone. As Linda say, my name is Beyza Sunay. I'm from Turkey, Ankara. I'm an organizer at GDG and WTM Ankara. I'm also a WTM ambassador. And actually, I'm in the Flutteristas group. And today I will talk about this community and how to join. First of all, what is the Flutteristas? Sorry, what are the Flutteristas? Flutteristas group is if you're interested in Flutter and you're a woman or non-binary person, you can join Flutteristas group. Our meetings handle with online, so it's a worldwide community. We have a meeting once a month. Sorry. Okay. We can be meeting once a month. In these meetups, we have guests from Google Flutter group members or Flutter community members, and we ask about Flutter questions or talk about Flutter specific topic or some kind of thing. And we use Discord. If you join our group, you can ask your questions about Flutter, or you can chat with us any subject. Actually, I don't have a tech background. I'm an archaeologist, but I'm interested in software development. And communities always support each other and help me progress. Flutteristas is such a community as well. Of course, another communities like GDGs help each other or everyone's, but that's not our topic today. If you want to talk about Flutter, improve yourself, or get support, you can join Flutteristas group. And if you want to join our group, do you identify yourself as a woman or non-binary woman, and you are interested in Flutter? Do you agree Flutteristas code of conduct? If you want to know this, you can check Google's Flutter interact with community guidelines. If you say yes to all these questions, you can reach Daniela and Stephanie with Twitter. You can ask them how to join, or you can reach me. I can help you then join the group. Actually, that's all I can say about Flutteristas group. If you want to ask question, you can ask me. I will love to help you, and that's all I can say. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
That's okay. I'm nervous all the time, so. Can you leave in chat your Twitter contact and the Twitter contact of the Google
yes,
team,
of course.
Flutter team? In this way, if anyone is interested in this way, I will copy it for myself, or you can send it to me in the email. usually after we finish this meetup, most of us that participated in the past, that after 1 day or two, the meetup is done, you will receive an email via Meetup with all the details, links, and everything for you to use in case you are interested. So even if you miss today any link that we have here in the chat, I will make sure to get everything from Beza and send it to you.
Yeah, thank you for your help.
Does anyone has any question for Beza? Jason, we cannot hear you.
Anthropology. I just see one person background is anthropology.
Wow, okay, good.
That's so great. In Turkey, most of people don't have this kind of background. And when I say I'm an archaeology, they will say, "What? How can you do programming?" I just say, "You just take the course and coding. That's it." But it's so different
You should tell them
thing.
that you can do anything. And coding helps with any other career too.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so both of those professions require you to dig deep, right? Sorry.
Yeah, it's good because when you code, you need some archaeology. You have to go to dig deep to find.
Especially if you're working with someone else's code that you've inherited. Definitely
Yeah.
archaeology.
Actually, it's the right job for programming.
Yeah, exactly. So no questions?
Yeah.
Can we go to the next in our agenda? I don't know which screen I have the agenda. I have to dig on my computer. Slides are here. Oh, okay, perfect. So our next speaker, I have to share my screen, right? You cannot see, right? 1 second.
That's right.
Enter screen. Yeah, if you see that I forget, please remind me because we have to make it a habit. Can you see my screen? Or not yet?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay. Yeah. So our next speaker is, I hope I say the name correctly, Mohamed Salih Güler. He is a Berlin-based senior mobile engineer and also a Google developer expert in Flutter and Dart. And he will talk today about effective app architecture and the state management in Flutter. So now I will unshare my screen and give it back to him. 1 second.
I'm just waiting. Okay, perfect. So let me share my screen. Just a second. Can everyone see my slides at the moment?
Not yet, yes.
Okay. If everyone is seeing, I think I can start. First of all, I feel super proud because like Güler is not a super common Turkish name. Beyza is my sister. And like seeing her leaving her comfort zone and speaking another language and giving presentation, it makes me feel super proud. And that's why I'm smiling all the time. So yeah, today we are going to learn and discuss about what is architecture and what is state management in Flutter and how we can pick one, and we will see the alternatives, and we will go through one alternative and see the code basically and how it works. So basically, before we go and like dig deeper, I would like to tell a bit about myself. I'm Salih. I'm Berlin-based. Like I've been living in Berlin since 3.5 years. I'm originally from Turkey. And right now I work for a bank and we are doing our application fully in Flutter. And yeah, I love community work. I mean, I spend a lot of time, as you can see, it's almost midnight here and I'm just doing a talk because community work is really important to me. It really helped me to meet a lot of great people around the world and really broaden my horizon. Let's put it this way. So, and I just don't attend the talks. I also founded communities here in Berlin for Flutter and in Turkey as well. Like Beyza and I together, we founded Flutter Turkey. And basically what we do with Flutter Turkey is like we get permissions from some blog writers and convert those blog posts to Turkish, because speaking another language is basically a luxury. Like, I mean, this is somehow talent, you can name it. Somehow it's a different thing that you do when you have to, but not everybody has this chance. And no matter what we can do to make the information available for everybody, we should do it. And that's why we do these talks, right? And that's why we decided to make these translations, make events in Turkey, like go to multiple cities and conduct some Flutter study jams and give some talks, etc. So this is basically me. And let's continue. Today's agenda is basically, first we will talk about what is software architecture. We will just go over some basics to understand what we are actually trying to achieve at the end of software architecture. Secondly, we will learn about what is state management, and we will learn the different types of it. Third, we will combine this information and build a simple app with Flutter. And I will try to answer almost every question that you have if I know the answer. If I don't know the answer, I can make a joke and we can laugh at it. So let's continue. So let's start with software architecture. I will go with this super classic question, like what is architecture in software development? And like from all of these long sentences, I think what we need to keep in mind is one word, it's blueprint. So when you're building your application, you need to have somehow a blueprint of what you have that actually explains what and how you manage to build something. So it should be maintainable. It should be executed in a way that you are able to understand and you have a consistent approach in your application or your software. For achieving these, we are following multiple steps, multiple approaches, and these approaches are called architectural patterns. You may heard a lot of different approaches, a lot of different patterns, like there are multiple ones here. If you're coming from different backgrounds, if you're coming from, for example, backend, you might heard about different ones. If you're from front-end perspective, coming from front-end, or if you're coming from like completely different field, you would hear some buzzwords around here like monolithic applications, reactive architecture, event-driven, and so on. And these and many more are the ways that how you can achieve architectural patterns. Obviously, there are some more famous than the others in mobile development, because like my background is in Android development, and when you come from Android development, you might hear about like monolithic approach, reactive approach, event-driven. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it, but this happened in Android as well. And especially the biggest architectural pattern you might hear is layered. And what by layered, what we mean is basically, we will go through it in the example as well, but you just layer your application in some levels that you have some abstracted pieces of information, and according to your approach, you might have communication in between layers. Actually, funny information, like right now I thought of, Flutter is aggressively layered. Like in the architectural approach that they decided to do, Flutter is aggressively layered. So you can see that there are like rendering happens in another layer, widget information is held in another layer. On the top, the material information is in another layer. engine itself is another layer, and inside it gets into another layer. So it's like a layer cake at the end. And this is like highly used in multiple applications, in multiple frameworks, actually. So after we have some idea about what is architecture, like we don't need to know 100% how we go through this, because I will explain everything and how you should decide what to pick later on. But we need to somehow understand what was architecture, which was your blueprint for your application, to understand where is what, and how you build your application. And you need to understand what is your architecture pattern. It's just the way, it's just some set of rules that you follow to build your application's architecture. You just need to keep this in mind. And we will now talk about how to pick an architecture pattern. So like when you are a software developer, just imagine you have a fresh application, like you're lucky and you have a fresh application, or you have a chance to rewrite some Android application into Flutter, you got even more luckier. And you need to decide to follow some approach, because your application, like there's a buzzword that your application should be maintainable and your application should be scalable. Like these words are always going around probably. So what we mean by this is your application, when you want to make it bigger, when you want to make it larger, it shouldn't cause you any problem. You shouldn't waste so much time. And when you make changes, or when you add new things, it shouldn't cause you some risk that your application should be solid. It shouldn't be like paper houses, I don't know how it's called, like from the cards you make, these houses. Anyway, I think you got what I mean. And another important piece is, I'm not going in the same order as the things that I have on the screen. I'm just like telling these out of my experience and my gut feeling. You should be able to understand what you're doing inside your application, and you need to see a pattern that you need to follow to create some stuff. Because once you have a system, you can follow it, and you can actually easily take out some stuff and move in some new things easily by following just simple patterns. I know in theory it sounds great, and in practice it's sometimes harder. I know, I feel you, but believe me, if you sit down and make your calculations correctly, you can achieve it. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, like this is a work, and you need to make things better for yourself, and obviously make things better for your company, your project, whatever you want, your client, whatever you want to call. So when you keep things in mind, and when you make a decision for architecture pattern, you need to put these all into one column and make a checkbox out of these. Then you need to go back to the maybe architecture patterns that we see here, for example, and actually pick the one that suits you the most. Like, for example, if you know one of them, there is no point of reinventing the wheel. If you have successfully implemented something, and if your team is along with it, there is no risk in that. So you can just pick that approach and build your application's architecture around it. So the idea is, all of these things mean that as a software developer, you need to make your calculations correctly, estimations correctly, so you can have the best approach and like make yourself happy about it. So after these information, what we are going to discuss is what is state management. So what is state? So Flutter uses the React architecture. Like React is the architecture type that has been created by Facebook. I don't know when. So basically the approach that they have in React Native or React itself was perfect, because like Dart itself is a reactive language, and React approach is a modern approach, an easy to learn approach that can be grasped by most of the engineers and developers. So the idea is they wanted to pick something that everyone can learn, and obviously something can help with what they want to achieve with a perfect software development kit. So that's why they picked the React approach for Flutter as well. And if you have any web developers or React Native or React developers, they would know this word state. State is basically, it represents the information that you have in that instance of your application. So you can have different types of states. Obviously, you don't have to have only local state. You can have local, obviously. It's called ephemeral state. So you can have your state for your certain page, but you can also have app state, like login information or like notification information or some other things that is applicable to your whole app. So state is the current information. Yeah, we agree on that. So we know that we can have local state. So we can have one information for one page, which is fine. We can keep it as it is. It's perfect. But we also have app state, which is applicable to through the whole app, or we can have in between state that it might be some information should be available for multiple pages. So what if we want to pass this information to multiple pages? What if we have an app state that needs to go through, for example, you logged in, but you want to change your profile, you want to go to your profile and change your password. So you need to have this information going from login until the profile page. How do we pass this? And then this question comes. What is state management? Because you need to manage this state in a way that it will pass through all of these widgets, and it needs to be in the place that you want to use, and maybe even it should be able to just mutable, like you need to be able to mutate this information and change it or update it. So state management itself is, as I explained, as your app grew, these informations being local will not be enough. So you need to pass some information along the way. And these informations are passed in different ways in Flutter. So you can have some state management approaches for your local places. Yeah, that's perfect. But sometimes you should be able to pass these informations along different widgets. That's why learning different state management approaches is helpful for you, so you can understand how it works. Plus, we need to keep in mind that Dart is a reactive language, and we can actually pass these informations by using streams. And we can actually make this platform agnostic, so we can actually make it really multi-platform, which means you can write backend with Dart. Yeah, exactly. You can write Angular Dart with front end for front end. So you can actually share some business logic from mobile to even backend to the Angular Dart itself. But sharing this information and keeping it consistent, plus actually having a bond between them, then we have these state management approaches. So how to pick a state management approach? I'm trying to go as slow as possible, by the way. If you have any questions or something, somehow you can just jump in. I will try to answer it. We are like 20-ish people, so I can just stop and answer and keep going. So I hope I'm clear. How to pick a state management approach. So there's one person who is really famous, and his name is Dan Abramov. He is one of the people who created this like React Native flow. Like he's a really cool guy, and I know for a Flutter talk, picking someone from the React world seems a bit odd, but I really respect his opinions. He's a really open-minded person. Like I know he is like always checking out the Flutter packages and stuff, and actually gives ideas to the contributors about how they can use the React approach in Flutter as well. So that's why I put this amazing sentence here. How to pick one state management is do whatever is less awkward. Like pick the one that suits your needs the most. What I'm going to do here is I will not just pick one for you. I will give you a catalog. I will explain this catalog, and at the end I will just explain how you can pick the one that suits your needs. So let's continue. Now we will learn about the state management options from Flutter itself. So in Flutter, basically the building blocks in Flutter are called widgets. And basically there are two types of widgets in Flutter. And one of them is called stateless, and the other one is called stateful. So actually both of these widgets are immutable. The idea is to keep the widgets immutable and basically make them disposable information holders, because behind the scenes there are like really hardworking objects called element and render objects happening to make your Flutter applications more performant. But in here, as I said, like we have two types of widgets we need to keep in mind based on basis. One of them is stateless, the other one is called stateful. But as you see, as you hear, I said both of them are immutable. So what makes stateful widget mutable is in stateful widget you have an object called state. So this state object is responsible for creating your widgets in, and it is responsible for when the state changes, it's responsible for recreating your widgets again. So how does it work? So first of all, your application is your widget is created. After the stateful widget is created, it calls a method called create state, and it creates a state object out of related to your stateful widget. And afterwards, actually behind the scenes, Flutter uses really complex structures like streams and change notifiers that is implemented within Flutter's SDK itself, and obviously streams directly comes out of the box from Dart to mutate your screen by using the framework logic. So for kicking off this recreation, you just call a method called setState. This seems like quite straightforward, right? Like when something has changed, you just recreate it. And according to what happens behind the scenes, Flutter itself is responsible for mutating your screen elements. What I would like to do for each element here is I took this idea from Brian Egan. He's also he's one of the creators of RxDart. In one of his presentations, he did some checkboxes for some approaches. I really liked it, so I wanted to use it in this approach. What we are going to see here is I will just give some grades according to 5 main topics. So for stateful widget, we have seen that it's easy to learn, right? Like you just use one method each time you have something changing. But in the second point, scalable, we are not still able to pass down this information into different widgets. Yeah, we are able to change and we are able to mutate our widgets somehow and update our information. That's perfect. But we are not still able to pass down information and update our widgets according to what we have, because set state happens inside stateful widget. What if I have a widget A, which is stateful widget, and widget B, which is stateless widget, and what if I want to change it? I can't just pass down all the time some dependencies and recreate the widget. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem performant. We can do it. It will work, but it's unfortunately not performant. So we can say that stateful widget is fine for local changes or like simple mutations, like, for example, updating a button according to your input, etc. But unfortunately, we can't say that this is the perfect solution through your whole application. It's platform dependent, because stateful widget itself is working directly with elements and render objects, which comes from directly from Flutter's framework. So you can't use it, for example, in an Angular Dart project. So that is also a no. Yes, it's easy to implement and it is testable. Yeah, easy to implement part is basically you call one method. And testable part is actually it's not a problem in Flutter itself, because Flutter gives you 3 different ways to test your applications. First way is called unit testing. Basically, if you have some programming background, probably you heard about unit testing. It's platform independent, only it depends on mocking and your language barriers. Second thing is, in Flutter, you have a second approach called widget testing. You don't need to have any device or anything, but you can actually mutate some information and create some widgets behind the scenes as logic, and you can make them do some behavior, and you can test it. And lastly, we have an instrumented test approach, which is basically, if you're coming from Android, for example, it's like Espresso. It runs visual tests on real devices. With Flutter, thanks to Flutter, we are able to test this stateful widget with widget tests and instrumented tests out of the box without putting extra effort, and we can see how it behaves in each change. So next one is called inherited widget and inherited model. As I said, for the local mutations in our values, stateful widget was enough. But we needed to have a better approach so we can actually pass down information. So what happens is, so Flutter works as in a tree structure. So from parent to the child, we can pass down information. Each widget has something called build context, which is, you can think it as an address point for your widget. So you have an address, and you know you can go with this address up to the point that you need information. And you can actually get that information, bring back down to the tree, and use it. For this purpose, Flutter has this special method called depend on inherited widget of exact type. So you will just use this, give a type of the information that you need. If you need a string, you will give a string. If you need an element, no, element is wrong. If you need a list, you can just get a list, and so on. So when the information has arrived, if you change this information, since this is part of an inherited widget, it will recreate the widget tree itself and actually mutate your information for you. But keep in mind that Flutter's recreation of widget tree is highly performant, because we do not recreate every object itself. We are reusing a lot of objects. We have a highly performant caching mechanism working behind. So whatever you change, actually.
WAMC's Capital Region Bureau Chief Dave Lucas reports. Albany County Executive Deanna Coy says 676 people are under mandatory quarantine and another 77
What's going on?
You can keep going. We just had to mute a microphone.
Okay, awesome. So I continue. I thought there
Yep,
was a...
no problem.
So I will continue. So inherited widget itself, as I said, like it has a highly performant approach on how you can rebuild your widget tree. So it's like really, really performant. But as you see, it requires some groundwork to do all the time to get the information. To make things easier, Flutter created something called inherited model, which is basically working like a model. You can keep this information, keep some information in it. And each time that you change it, it is inherit if it's inside inherited widget. When you change something in inherited model, inherited widget is recreating the widget tree to mutate the changes on your screen. Let's see the grade paper for this. Is it easy to learn? Yes. Now we fixed the scalability problem, so we can actually pass down these informations in the different widget trees. So that's also check. Is it platform independent? Still not, because all the widget namings are happening with widget, and all the widgets are tied to elements and render objects, and these three are part of Flutter's framework itself. So you are still highly coupled to your Flutter, but if you have only a Flutter project, it's highly acceptable. Is it easy to implement? As I said, it's a bit cumbersome, so you need to do some extra work all the time to be able to pass down this information. And one more time, testability is not a problem in Flutter, because you can either mock or recreate some approaches to test your widgets or models, which is working out of the box perfectly. So you don't need any extra libraries or liabilities. So this approach was really complicated. And what happened is, okay, I have an example to show you actually, so you can see it. Just a second, I think I'm missing my speaker notes, so I don't want to miss something. Anyway, so let's think about one. Yes, okay, now it works. So let's think about one inherited widget called frog color. This frog color, and by the way, the approach mainly to use this inherited widget and get the information about it. Basically, what we do is we always have tendency to create a static method called the type of the, let me use the pointer, the type of the object dot of, and we pass the context, and context is going to deliver us the information that we need. So if you have worked with Flutter, maybe you have seen a widget called theme. So when you actually try to reach out something, you say theme.of blah, 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 or media query.of blah, blah, blah. So these themes, both of them are actually inherited widgets. They just wrapped around convenience methods like this, and they are easy to use. And when you just call this method, it will just work directly. Now I will go to provider and scope model. As I said, what happened is actually scope model itself.
Can I ask a question, Salim?
Yes, of course.
Can you return to the other slide?
This one?
Yeah. We
Okay.
did some apps, but fairly like for juniors. I see this is kind of, I don't know others, but it's kind of very complex code.
Yeah.
So basically, what you do there, you are using a widget and you are overwriting the widget with your new values. Am I right?
So like what we have is exactly what we create is we create a widget. We create a widget here, and we want to reach out a certain information from this widget, which is the color.
Mm-hmm.
And for reaching out this color, what we do is we create a convenience method, because to reach out the information that is provided from inherited widget, normally you need to use this method, which is a super long method.
Mm-hmm.
And for getting rid of this bottleneck, it's basically what you do is you create a static method here, and this static method returns directly the frog color object to you. I know it is complicated, actually. That's why I shared it, because since this was complicated, they created another approach. It's a wrapper around it. Exactly. I know this is complicated because, as I said, like, it is not easy to implement. Like, especially for, it's not like I consider myself as an experienced Flutter developer. I've been doing Flutter apps since 2.5 years, more or less. And it is not an easy thing to implement. But what I wanted to show you here is actually show you the groundwork and actually why people used other approaches instead of using these. For example, people didn't use this because this is hard to implement. So what happened is sorry?
Says thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
No worries, no worries. Like, jump in anytime you have a question. I'm more than happy to explain everything. So since it was too complicated to implement, first they created something called scope model. Scope model is basically an approach that they did in Fuchsia OS and Fuchsia operating system. And what Brian Egan did is he just took it out of the Fuchsia and created a package for it. So it helped us to get rid of a lot of things and a lot of inconveniences. You just had a system to just define a type of object, and these type of objects were able to pass through the widgets by simply using scope model. But scope model itself was still not super convenient, because scope model was somehow needing an extra work as well. You needed to create another like inherited models, so it should be able to listen to them. And those changes were only applicable when you make them on the inherited models, which was not super convenient. Then this super famous package called provider is created. The provider, what people call it, is basically it's the scope model on steroids. So this package was actually out there, and along the way, actually Flutter team was doing exact same thing. And they just Remy just contacted them and said, look, you don't need to do it. I already did it. Let's just work on this together. So provider is a mixture between dependency injection and state management. So it helps you to pass down all the information that you need in the widget tree. So for provider, how it works is there are 3 different ways. You can use maybe from the inherited widget, you can see the syntax. It's, it sounds like familiar. You can just say provider.off and put the data type of something that you need and give the context, and it can return the information that you need. So like, just imagine all of these boilerplates that you see here. Instead of this, you can just create your object, and these objects will be approachable in your widget tree. And second thing is, there is a type called consumer. Consumer is basically in the background, what it does is it gets this method, but listens to the changes, and each time that a value changed, it recreates your widgets. So with this one, you can get the value once, But with this one, each time that value changes, you can have it. What selector does is, selector is actually exactly like consumer. Difference is you can filter out some information that you don't need. So one more time, provider of brings back the current value. It doesn't recreate. So it doesn't make you listen to the changes. Consumer is making you listen to the changes in the value that you, with the type that you provide here. I forgot to put it. And selector is when there's a change, you can put a filter and you can get only the filtered information that you need.
Sully, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Would I be correct in saying that what provider is really doing is you're in your app, you're creating a set of singletons that that provider's giving you that dependency injection of that single instance further down the
widget, right? Your
further down. I mean, can I think of the instances that provider is giving me inside of a widget is really just a set of singleton instances that I'm setting up when my app is first created.
I think taking it like that is not correct, because like what provider does is provider uses the magic of inherited widgets. So inherited widgets behind the scenes, or all the widgets actually, like all the mutable objects behind the scenes, they use streams. So all of these changes, data information transference happens with streams actually. So thinking provider as a singleton, or all of these objects as singleton, it's not correct, I would say. I mean, how it is architected is basically there is a layered information, and this information is just passed through the point that you need. Was I somehow clear?
I think so, but yeah. I'll go on with your demo, and then maybe it might pop up later.
Yeah, I mean, like if I'm not clear at the end, let's discuss this. I have time. No worries. Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Cool. Perfect. Because, like, for example, with the singleton approach, I know there's something called get it. I'm not a person who uses that, so I used it. I didn't like it. That's why I didn't put it to the presentation. This presentation is 100% subjective. It's not objective. It's from my experience so far. But as I said, if it's not clear at the end, please ask me again. Okay. So let's continue. So provider and scope model. Provider and scope model are super easy to learn. Like, you can go to the documentation, just follow what you see in the documentation, and you will be doing the best you're doing. So it is implemented in a way that it creates as less widget recreations as possible. It, like, all the performance optimizations with keys and everything is already done behind the scenes. So what you need to do is you just need to read the documentation once, try to implement it, and you will be good to go. It is, one more time, it is scalable. You can pass down information to any place that you need. It is working fine. It's actually working even better in multiple approaches. So you can use it even like a dependency injection approach. But as I explained, this uses inherited widgets really heavily behind the scenes. So it is still not platform independent, but it is easy to implement. Like, you can just start with it and go with it. And one more time, testability is not a problem with the state management approaches in Flutter. You just need to have a way to go through it along the way. So let's assume that you are a web developer, or you come from some other approach and you like another architecture approach. Flutter is actually, the Dart language itself started as a web language. So all of these web web approaches are not so far away from our Dart language itself. Like Redux is one of these approaches. So Redux is basically unidirectional data flow. So you can just actually pass down informations in a way that you need. Redux has different ways to set, like, mutate your state. So there is a store. Store is the thing that holds the information about your state actually. And every application event is happening as an action. And each action is dispatched to a reducer function. And when you make an action and dispatch a reducer, this reducer goes back to store and updates itself, updates the state. And when this action happened, reducer happened, and store is updated, then your state is updated. I mean, you can think it as a triangle somehow. And good thing about Redux is you can have a Redux for only Dart, and you can have Redux for Flutter related stuff as well to control the widget creation process. Notecard for Redux, again, this is from my personal experiences. For me, Redux, like my first project was with Redux, so maybe I was a bit unlucky. But for me, learning Redux was not super easy. Like I had so many places that I needed to go back and re-implement stuff. I have seen that I was doing unnecessary calls sometimes. But as I said, like it was my first Flutter project. It was like 2.5 years ago. So maybe I wasn't aware of what's going on. But for me, it wasn't easy to learn. It definitely works. It's highly scalable, super easy to implement. And it is platform independent, as I said. So if you have an Angular Dart project, and if you have a Flutter project, you can share these informations in between. And actually, there is an application in GitHub called Inkino. It has been created by another Google developer expert. And you can see that you can share almost like 60–70% of your business logic between Angular Dart and Flutter by using Redux. And test coverage of that project is around 90%, so it is highly testable as well. So what I wanted to talk about next is I'm going to show you an example with this is MobX. MobX is also coming from web. So like if you have somehow like JavaScript experience, you might heard about MobX. It's a state management approach. And it was active in like other languages, but since Dart is a reactive language, it was obvious that we could implement it in Dart. So another GDE, Pavan Podila, had implemented this into Dart. So MobX works with basically 3 different approaches. What I like about MobX is once you learn this stuff, you're good to go. Okay, no. So let's talk about observables first. What happens with observables is you can assign some variables as observables, and you can actually listen to their changes and listen to the changes that they have. They are your state elements. So you can actually observe them to see how they changed. So for observing them, you can do 2 different things. First thing that you can do is you can use observers. Observers comes from MobX library, but it is implemented with Flutter elements. So if you're going to use observers, you can just like say observer, blah, 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 and you will be good to go. And you can just have a simple widget tree and you can change your elements directly, but it will be highly Flutter dependent. But another approach is called reactions. Reactions are also listening to the changes that you have in observables. You can listen to them constantly. You can listen to them only once, like fire and forget logic. And you can actually use the data that you have and mutate your state with them. But how do you mutate your information? You use something called actions. So your actions are the operations that you do to change a state. And this way you can actually make something out of what you have. We will see a deeper example with this in a few minutes. So MobX part. MobX has a great documentation. It actually has super basic architectural approach. It's highly scalable, like using it in even different layers is highly possible. They are like, it's platform independent. As I said, if you don't use observables, you can use it with Dart, and you can actually have Angular, Dart, and Flutter project and share some information. It is easy to implement. You will see it, how it works in a few minutes, and it is highly testable. So I will talk about, lastly, the bad boy of Flutter. It's called block pattern. If you have heard about Flutter, I'm sure you heard about block. It was one of the biggest mistakes that Flutter did. So basically, what Flutter engineers wanted to do was they wanted to create an approach to share information from Angular Dart to Flutter itself, because they were doing AdWords application, and they want to share as much business logic as possible. But splitting business logic itself is a hard thing to do, even for some developers, like even for some experienced developers. So they say that, okay, use business logic and split your business logic and make it testable, and use that business logic in multiple approaches. So this was the main idea. For communication, just use streams because you already have Dart, and Dart has already streams. But this is not an easy task to do, because even though it's the perfect approach, not everybody has a chance to just implement Flutter without like putting some business logic into their widget. I've seen this happening to multiple people. Unfortunately, this is sometimes too hard to pass to the next developer. It doesn't matter. The level of developer is that it doesn't matter. So what the problem here is, it's not easy to learn. Yes, it is scalable. It can go to the multiple places that you need to implement. It is platform independent. Yes, it's highly reliant on the Dart features itself. You can even use RX if you have RX knowledge from RX Java, RX JS, RX Swift, whatever you want to call. It is, as an implementation wide, it is somehow easy once you build up this huge system. So it requires a super high learning curve. Once you have it, it is somehow easier to implement. And it's highly testable because you will be splitting the business logic. You can just like unit test everything that you have. I know we have covered so many stuff. I know it was complicated, so I will keep this example as simple as possible.
First of all, there is a question from Eric. He says, yeah. You said that Redux was hard to learn. Are you still using it?
No, I don't. I don't use it because, like, for me, like, it was super challenging in the first step. And, you know, once you get this bad feeling out of a technology, it's hard to go back sometimes. For me, it was like this, especially in the same time I got used to using Block, and I had a chance to actually use Scope model back in the days because we didn't have provider. So I didn't use Redux again. Maybe it's easier now. As I said, what I wanted to show you here is I want to show my grades on state management, and what I want you to understand what we have here.
And what are you using instead?
Sorry?
So what are you using instead of Redux?
Right now we are using Block, and for dependency injection we are using provider. And this is how it works. In my side project, in my pet projects, I'm using Mobex. And in one of my projects, I use, again, provider as a state management option as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So let's try to see an example out of it so we can actually understand how we decide on some stuff. We will just now combine an architecture pattern with a state management. We will consider using layered pattern, which is like, probably you have heard about these magic words like UI layer, domain layer, and data layer. In our approach, widgets will be our UI layers, domain will be the operational part, and repository will be the part that is going to be providing us the information that we need from the resource that we might have. Again, UI layer part will be with widget. It will only have the UI related things. It will not do any operation. It will just pass down the operation requests down to the domain layer. So in this example, we are going to be using, so when you create a Flutter project, you are seeing a counter example, and we are going to be using that. And it is a like super easy project. If I can find one around here, I can just show you, but no, I don't have it anyway. So it will just show you a screen with a button, and once you click the button, it will just increase the number by 1. In the example, we are going to be using a stateful widget as it is here. And as you know, stateful widget itself is a mutable widget. So as I explained, once you create a stateful widget, you just create a state, and that's all you do. The rest is handled by Flutter framework itself. We create the state object like this, like we name the class, and this underscore here means that it's a private class. So private in Dart works in a way that if they're in the same file, they can reach it. So that's why we wanted to keep state and stateful widget in the same file, but keep the state as private, so it's not eligible to the other parts of the application. Anyway, we say that, okay, it extends from state, and as you see, it names counter example. So this is related to this stateful widget. And we are creating an object called counter, which we are going to see soon that it is actually a Mobex store. We will see it soon. So let's forget about this for now. What we have here is we have a build method. This method is a special method that helps us to create the view that we see on the screen. So once we create the state, it will just get this information, pass it down to the widget tree, and it will just send information to GPU to draw these pixels on the screen. So what we have here is scaffold, which is a special method that is helping us to create material design components. We can put an app bar to the app bar position, floating action button to the floating action button position. And body will be filling out the rest of the screen. So now we will see what we have as a body. In the body part, we have a widget called center. So in Flutter, almost everything is a widget. So this, if you want to center something, you just write center, and it gets centered. This is how it works. If you want to put one element after another below, you just use column. If you want to put one next to the other, you just use something called row. In here, we just want to use one after another thing, and that's why we use column. First, we will have a title, and this title will be saying that you have pushed the button this many times, and we will have this observer for the value coming from our store. We will see what it is now, but what we need to understand is we have a simple text. After that, we will see a number to show the changes that we have. This observer part from like everything, what you need to keep in mind is this part. From the counter value, we will change, we will mutate what we have here. As you see, I wanted to keep it as stateful widget because as you see here, we don't do any set state, but even in those circumstances, the value will change. And in the float in action button, we will just again call the store to make an increment operation. But what was this store? Now, as I said, the widget part will just do some information changes, some operations regarding to what we have here. Sorry, let me put this here. It will just send the operations down to the domain layer, and it will just show the information there. It will not do any operations inside directly, like it will not increment, do a plus plus and set state again. It will not do that. What it's going to do is it will just say, when you click, just let the domain layer know that some operation happened. So this is the counter object that we created. So in the counter object, as you see, we have an increment action. So what increment action does is it just gets the value and adds 1 to it. What we listen as a value is it's an observable object. But you will say that you said, Salih, this was supposed to be easy, and you still write boilerplate code. Why do you do this? We have actually a way to get rid of all of these boilerplate code, and we can use, for that, we can use actually a code generator from the MobX library. And what we need to do is we need to create an abstract class and saying that this will be used in the store mixin. And with this approach, you can just annotate the value as observable and annotate the method as action, and that will be all. The rest of the stuff will be happening in the background without you even like changing one thing. The code generation happens with one single command, and it doesn't take any of your time. You just need to copy and paste the thing that you see in the library, and that's all. So this way, you don't need to write all of these boilerplate codes. You can just write an abstract class here. I mean, and sorry, you can just have an abstract class here with observable and actions, whatever you have, and you can just reach out to that information and use it directly. So for the sake of this example, we will not have a repository layer. We could have had it, but it would be just complicating the stuff. But what you need to keep in mind is if we had a repository layer that needs to pass the information back to the domain layer, we would be still using MobX stores. So we would have another store like we had here, and it would just pass back this information to the domain layer. Domain layer would pass back this information to the widget, and this way it would be updated. So I know I talked too much, so I want to make some conclusions. Like first of all, picking an architecture depends highly on your experience and your background. So what I mean with that is, if you had that web background with super nice Redux knowledge, you can go with Redux. You would be super fast. If you know MobX, you can go with MobX. But if you can go with whatever you know, and it would help you a lot. What I wanted to show you here is you can have a lot of options. Some are harder to implement, some are easier to implement, some you might know, some you might not know, but still you have different options to go through. So you can pick the one that you need the most. Secondly, what I want to emphasize is hype doesn't mean best, because block was super hyped. Right now we have block libraries walking around which are not real blocks. Even like Felix says that it is a block library is interpretation of him about their project in BMW. So hype doesn't mean best. So you need to know what is best for yourself. You need to just think carefully and make your development life easier, because we all know that deciding on an architecture, designing an architecture for your application is hard. So I learned some new words I want to use here. Use the creative selection, do the iteration, just make an example, go to your peers, ask them. When you get a feedback, lose the ones that doesn't make any sense, but keep the strong parts and make your application even better. Because I know for a fact that with multiple iterations, you can have an amazing product and amazing architecture, because Flutter gives you the tools that you need for this, and you can achieve what you want out of with everything that you have. So today, what we did is we talked about what software architecture is. We talked about state management and state management approaches. We have seen a MobX example. Now you can ask any questions that you have to me. I left some resources here for the things that I have mentioned. There are really nice talks. I have left the link. I will share the slides on my Twitter account, so you can have these links and check out the examples and blog posts that you have. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I didn't bore you to death.
Not at all. We have another question in chat, always from Eric. He almost took my mind. Some of his question was in my mind. So he says, how does MobX handle async operation, middlewares? And he says also, thank you for a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you for listening. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I will be honest with you. Like, what I know is, let me share what I know. From the from the Flutter MobX, I know how it works because there are only like six files. I have gone through everything. So what it does is it uses the. So let me give you some brief information about more Flutter. I'm sorry I talk too much, but it's just for passing information. So in Flutter, you have mainly three information. So three main blocks, which is called widget, element, and render objects. As I said, widgets are disposable. You don't like, you can just keep this information and like throw it away. And when you have a new one, the previous one just can go to the garbage. The second one is called element. And what MobX uses is it uses elements, and elements are actually behind the scenes using a special object called change notifier and streams. So what MobX with Flutter uses is it's using the elements to go through the information. But why is it using elements? Because widgets are not highly optimizable and it can go more complicated. They use element because elements are already optimized and they are doing the hard work for you. So what MobX is doing is it is using the already implemented stream and change notifier logic that they have in elements. And this way, they just pass down these informations. And since it is working as a stream, it is like you have these observers or you have these, I forget the name of it. Let me check it. I will cheat. Sorry.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And yeah, reactions are listening to it. And this way you have a chance to have this mutation approach.
Great. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Listening to your presentation, what made me more interested in was this MobX.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to show us, if you how you use it, if you have a little project or something. It just made me curious because I never heard about it, and I think it will be because if you have all this functionality that you can add and use it without writing all this code behind it. So I don't know others, but I would be curious to see another example or something if you have.
I mean, like right now in this PC, I don't have it because this is my work PC. uh, yeah, so sorry about that. And but like honestly, the link that I shared in my slides, I can actually share it on the
Here in the chat. Yeah.
exactly. So let me share the links first. So first of all, this is a website, and I also can share my slides so you can check it out. And at the end of the slides, I have the Twitter account, so you can ask me questions over there as well. So in the website that I shared, what Flutter community did is they have basically a to-do app, but they have used all of these architectural patterns and state management to create a complicated to-do app. So you can actually see how they look like with the approaches that they have. And all of these examples are created by the creators of those libraries. So when you see MobX, it's not created by me. It's created by Pavan himself. So he just created an example so you can have an approach. It's the same for provider is created by Remy. Scope model is created by Brian Egan. Block is created by Brian Egan. And like all of these stuff are there. They're trivial apps, but obviously you might have questions. Do not get hesitated to ask questions. One thing that I really like about Flutter community is we are more than happy to help or answer any questions that you might have. Like anything that we can do to help you out, to help you to pass these junior phase about Flutter, everyone will do their best. Just ask questions, and we will be doing our best to clarify everything possible, with everything possible. So unfortunately, I don't have an example to directly show, but I think the link that I'm sending is somehow useful for you.
Yeah, I was looking at it. But there is a way to see the code behind it. This is a sandbox, or it's only a presentation of the.
Sorry, come again?
This link that you sent us with the samples. When you click on it, this is not a sandbox where you can go to work like Dartpad or something. No.
No, I mean like there, like you can see the codes on GitHub. I can show the codes.
Ah, okay. GitHub. Oh, I got you. Okay.
So here it is, but in the website there's also.
No, because I got so interested when I heard you talking about SS. Definitely, I will have to try it out.
Yeah, I mean, just go ahead. I think I mean, all of these approaches are nice, as I said, but we are human beings. Like, for example, for some of you, Redux is super simple. For me, it's not. For me, for example, MobX is simpler, but for you, maybe MobX is complicated. Because one more time, we are different people and we have different learning approaches, and we might have hard times to understand some technologies, which is totally fine. And that's why we have these communities, right, to explain the things in a way that we all understand and find a common ground. So, yeah, I've seen a question from James. Hello, Sally. Thank you for giving this well-needed presentation. Can you show how you use the contour object in your stateful widget again? Of course. May I share my screen again?
Yes.
Cool. So let me open this up. I think this will be more than enough. So you're totally right. Like once you create this counter object, you have everything that you need about the counter operations, because you will have a chance to make an increment operation by just saying counter.increment. And if you go here, you can just listen to the value with counter.value. I use observer here, but if you want to make it platform agnostic, you don't even have to use this. You can just use, I forget the word again, reactions, and reactions will be listening to the changes that you have inside of your observables. So you don't need to actually even use an observer. I just use an observer because observer is also helping me to have a better widget recreation process. So it was just a convenience way, but it's totally up to you to pick the one. But you're right, it is way easier, way straightforward to use Mobix. And I use, like, as I said, I use stateful widget on purpose, but you don't even need a stateful widget. You can have a stateless widget there, because what happens is widget creations happens after the text widget itself. So the upper side of the widget doesn't need to be mutated. And if you just trigger the path that you need to change, that would be more than enough. So it is a convenience way somehow, yeah, but I really like how it approached. I really like provider as well. I can't say that it's bad, but for me, maybe I am coming from a perspective that I want to split the things. I want to split the business logic as much as possible so I can have a better, stable, and testable approach. So that's why maybe I like it more. I don't know.
Sure, Sally. You know what it feels like, because I've used provider on a really small application, and in a widget, I'll end up using provider of, yada yada yada, like a couple different times within the widget, and whether this one here is listen true, this one's listen false, and it seems like with Mobix you're just saying, look, just put the thing I want to watch, just declare it one time as an instance variable, and then I have access to it everywhere. I don't have to worry about whether or not I have a context yet.
Yeah, I mean, like, with the provider approach, provider can be cumbersome, but you can have like different approaches like multi-providers and so on to make somehow it a bit less code. But still, for me, like, the biggest advantage of Mobix is it is independent from your platform. So you can, like, for me, I know I'm saying this all the time, but being able to test it is really important to me, because it depends on your, like, it depends how many, like, how reliable your app is. Like, it's really important. So that's why I really care about it. And I really like this approach. Or, like, from the other side, I really like the block when it goes to the right place. Again, you can just split the business logic and just test it in a way that you need. So it helps with a lot of stuff. Obviously, there will be times that sometimes Mobix will cause problems as well, but I don't know, if you have the right mindset and right split between your layers, I think it will work fine.
So we have another question from Jax. What is your favorite IDE for Flutter?
IntelliJ all the way. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. IntelliJ all the way. Like, everybody's dying for Visual Studio, but I'm not. I mean, I can't get used to it. I tried, but, like, maybe my background is Android, so I know how. Well, how about it? Come on, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Come on. I mean, like, Visual Studio itself is obviously like super lightweight and easier to use maybe for some people, but for me, I don't know. I love IntelliJ.
Android Studio or Visual? Visual.
I mean, like, for me, Android Studio goes to the garbage, and IntelliJ is nice because this way I can just get rid of everything that I don't like about Android Studio. It's nice.
I have never used IntelliJ yet, so now I'm very interested in trying it out.
Please, you will thank me later. So just download it. Like, the community edition is like free to use. You can use it directly. And I don't know, for me, it's not as heavyweight as Android Studio, so I can guarantee you that. And in the beginning of installation, you can actually remove all the extra things that you might not need, like, I don't know, Java Spring stuff, SQL connection stuff. So it goes even more more lightweight along the way that you install it. So for me, one more time, it's also a matter of I got used to it. You know, it's been, I don't like, I think Studio came like 7 years ago or so, and I've been using it from the day one that it started. And I used Eclipse as well. Eclipse was a punch in the stomach every day, so it's a big no. But yeah, definitely I can say that IntelliJ is going nice. Plus, I have this loading bar, looks like Mario, and it's really nice. Yeah, what do you do? You can ask any other questions that you might have about Flutter. Like I'm using Flutter in production as well. Like I've used it in with different applications from like scale from different scales. Like I had applications with 10,000 up to 1 million users made with Flutter. So if you have any questions about any problems if I had, or if you have any questions about or doubts about Flutter, you can ask me. I will do my best. I will be 100% honest. I will tell you the things that I don't like as well. So you can just ask me anything you want.
How long it took you to build an application for in Flutter, of course,
Yeah.
with thousands of users, and it was easy to implement. We only build the small applications. I tell you the truth. I don't know if anyone else here build bigger applications, but comparing with because you have even the background of Android Studio. Which one it was easier for you to build a scalable, let's say, a scalable application?
I mean, obviously with software development, like as you got experience, things get easier because you are able to see some things that you are not able to see. I mean, like every day I'm growing as a person, like as a developer, like I am seeing some things that I wasn't able to see maybe 5 days ago in the apps. So it's a matter of experience. Every day we get more experience in the field that we work in. For me, like having Android experience was really good because I was able to use these platform-related information that I have. Plus, I was able to also channel these mobile development experience in. So, like from a time frame from 3 to 9 months, we have developed applications. Like we had a simple meditation application. That was the first app that we did. Actually, it went to IO. Like since it was one of the first Flutter apps, it was really cool. But it took only like 3 months for us to implement that. So we had another application that has been used here by 1 million users in Germany. Which is basically an e-commerce app that is selling second-hand notebooks. And like that application took like between 6 to 9 months because like of the like payment process, etc. We needed to write some native code, and back in the days we didn't have all the packages that we have right now. So it took sometimes longer. But for example, with the banking app that I'm working right now, like we did a simple, not simple, we did a 100% face, I was going to say facelift because we call it facelift here, like a redesign in 1.5 months for the whole application. Like everything, literally everything has changed about the application in 1.5 months. And so that's the story. So it is, for me, I always use the same example. It's like building blocks. So you just like mount it, move it, but put it somewhere else, or reuse some building blocks again to be able to create something more bigger, etc. So long story short, again, like it takes different times, but it's also a matter of experience. So give yourself some time. I mean, Beza will be probably shy about this, but I will say that like I've been mentoring Beza because I mean, as I said, she's my sister, and like I was also supporting her for like through this process. And Beza did her like Flutter web project by herself, and like the first thing that she did in her project took some more time, but along the way, as time went by, she went faster and faster, and adding actually really non-trivial things took less time than she spent maybe just put in a simple box. So it's a matter of experience as it is in other fields.
We have some other questions here in chat if you want to take a look. One is from Gossel. Thanks for the presentation and explanations. Do you recommend CodeMagic or which others CI/CD?
I use everything, so I can tell everything. So let's put it this way. If you have an application that needs a CI/CD directly, really fast, go with CodeMagic. They're like easy to configure, and you can like have a lot of options. The minutes package that they have in the website is really high as well. I mean, I know the CodeMagic people, they are really, really good. They are really fast to answer your questions and so on. And like if you have, like if you are in need for a really simple and really fast CI/CD, go with CodeMagic. But if you have an in-house dedicated CI/CD system, then it gets complicated. Then you need to make a decision according to your knowledge and according to your budget. But nevertheless, I would suggest maybe you can start with something really well-known along the community called Jenkins. You can use, like, you can set up Jenkins in your in-house device, and you can have a dedicated device for it. It's open source, so it's like you don't need to do anything. If you want to go more professional, you can go with Travis, GitLab CI, and so on. But two options. If you need something online and really fast, CodeMagic. If you have time and have a chance to implement, go with Jenkins with a dedicated Mac.
We have another question for you, Salih, from James. So have you used Dart for your backend API services?
Yes, I did. Like, so with Dart, so as I said, Dart is created as a web language in original. So like with the Angular Dart, you can do front end, and by using Dart directly, you can actually write your, with the Dart's HTTP package, you can actually write your backend packages. But Dart itself is like inherited widgets, you know, the information is there, but it's complicated to implement. So that's why we had some frameworks. It's one of them is called, I can share the link, Aqueduct. I don't know how it's pronounced, so sorry for the terrible pronunciation. It's Aqueduct, I don't know. And the other was called, I think, Angel. And I will share this as well. And both of them had worked really nice, but Aqueduct had a better documentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jason has a question for you. So, Salih, you tell us a bit about the fintech backends. You have experience with working with cloud. Maybe it was better if Jason was
Yeah, I mean, like if you talk about how they use microservices and so on, I don't have much knowledge, but like what I can tell about our project is they're using Java as a backend, and I think they're using Spring for the systems, but like I don't have much knowledge about what they're doing. I just know that they use Java and Kotlin, mostly Java, and that's the thing that I remember from the backend side. Like I hear about microservices and everything, but I haven't had a chance to actually go deep with the infrastructure, because it's always a changing field in fintech and you need to handle a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, you don't go and have technical conversations with your peers. You go and have directly fintech related conversations, like what is our provider on this, and how did you build this infrastructure, and how can we actually achieve something, how do you pass this information, and so on. So probably like as a logic, it's a simple REST API, but the other thing is basically we have providers that is providing us information or credit score, and those informations are passed through us from our REST APIs to be used on our application.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. No worries.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yes, of course.
We know that Flutter came like 1 year and something ago. So you might have that experience with Flutter so long. And you said that you have experience with Android like 7 years. Did I understand correctly?
I mean, like I had let's say 7 years.
Yeah. I don't have to be here precise. So if you will have, for example, if the next project they tell you can use whatever you like, what you will choose between Android and Flutter?
I mean, like let me answer you this way. I had a chance to earn more money by using Android, but I chose Flutter because I love doing Flutter. I was a bit bored in Android, and I had the chance to work on fintech field with Flutter. So I chose, yes, less money, but I chose the one field that I enjoy doing, because I spend like most of my day around Flutter. Like I create content with it, I give talks and so on and so forth. And I wanted to dedicate more time in this. And that's why if I'm given the chance, I would always pick Flutter. But one more time, this decision is also dependent on the project. I need to see the project, make my calculations around it, and see the limitations of Flutter and so on. But if both perfect condition, if I pick Android or Flutter, I would pick Flutter every day.
Okay. Yeah, that's not fair. And does anyone has any other questions? I see that Jason wrote something. Do you want to say anything about it, Jason?
Yeah,
it's
I guess I'm sorry.
My English, it's kind of difficult. I don't want to split your message.
Yeah, sorry, I'm spamming the channel with an opportunity. So yeah, I work for Red Hat, and we are right now sort of partnering with this 4,000 plus member volunteer strong organization called US Digital Response, and they were an outgrowth from the United States Digital Service, so they had something to do with healthcare.gov, and believe me, much better things after that in terms of getting the White House and state agencies or federal agencies to understand how to employ a DevOps model and do things in a tighter loop, right? So it's starting to gain hold, and this US Digital Response is an outgrowth of that, which is specifically targeting the challenges with COVID-19 across the US right now. So they are taking all sorts of applications for volunteers in the area of platforms, infrastructure, hosting, people that have logistics and supply chain experience, healthcare. They're bringing together all these multidisciplinary volunteers and putting them in teams to solve a backlog of needs that the states keep bubbling up, and they're trying to collapse these requests into a common set of things that all of the states across the U.S. can use, so they can create one solution and stamp it out multiple times with container-based deployments and things like this, right? So naturally, Red Hat with like our container hosting platforms and our automation tools are very interested to collaborate on this. That's why I'm involved. So I just wanted to kind of reach out because everybody on this call is, a mobile developer. They might be interested to also check that out and see if they'd like to. That's all.
You are breaking out.
Oh, sorry.
At the end. I don't know if
so the rest
May I share something with the same topic? Like the World Health Organization changed their app recently. I sent the link, and they rewrote the application in Flutter, so you can check it out. It's open source, and like you can just check it out. I don't know about the quality. I just know that there were like around 1,000 folks in 2 days, and people were going crazy. So you can just check it out. And this COVID topic, I'm sorry, I just wanted to jump in.
That sounds great. I'm saving all these links because tomorrow or the after tomorrow, I usually send to all the attendees or everything is shared or everything we mentioned here, so nobody will lose anything. So, does anyone else has any other announcements, community announcements, or?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I wanted to say that I love your answer, Mohammed, about how you would rather be happy and make a little less money versus do something that you're not as happy in to make more money. Because that's something, especially as a programmer, that a lot of times people don't realize that there's so many options and so many codes and types of ways that you can go in different directions and you're not stuck doing just one. And that's something huge that I learned in this since I started in the Google developers.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's really important. Like, I totally, like, this is how I live my life as well. Actually, like, I tell this every day, and I'm not ashamed to say this, but I love my job, and I don't do it for money. Like, I do it because I enjoy doing it. Like, it makes me stay awake until 2 a.m. and like talk to the people across the ocean and share my knowledge, because this is what I'm passionate about. Like, to meet great people like you all, and like just have a decent conversation, share the things that I feel excited about, and actually pass the information that I might have. If it's little, it's little. If it's too much, it's too much. But as long as I'm able to share it, and as long as I can do something for everyone who loves this field, this job, then this is the important part. Money and everything is really important. Yes, money, we need it, unfortunately, yes, but it's not everything. It's not, I can guarantee you that it's not everything, because once you feel happy and satisfied with what you're doing, this is the place that you feel like in peace in your life. So my tips
Actually, James wrote in Slack saying the world is a better place because of people like you, Salih.
No, it's because of you people, like you people as well. Just imagine all of you took time out of your days with your families, with your like loved ones, and everything that you care, and you just want to share this information. And like, I'm just here, yes, but all of you try your best to give back to the people who doesn't have the chance. So if you think me as a person who is doing something nice, I really appreciate it, but it's also goes back to you people as well. You are doing a great job. I know how much time that it consumes to be an organizer. I'm on the other side as well. I know how hard it is to find a speaker, make the arrangements, if it's going to work or everything will fall down. I know everything, but we all together are making this world a better place.
Thank you, and Isa for joining us, and we have to thank really Nilay for making this happen. I was so happy when I see, oh, we have some speakers.
Yeah, she's a great person. We really admire her.
Yeah. And does anyone wants to add something else? Let's see, Jason. Why you don't speak on the microphone, Jason?
Oh, I don't know. I want to let people talk. People can read that. That's okay.
The world just got a little smaller today. Thanks, Ali and Lisa, and all the participants. Oh, so nice. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Does anyone wants to share any? We have now some announcements. I will have some announcements, but if anyone else would like to announce something like community events or something online that they are aware that anyone else will be interested, if not, I will start with my announcements. 1,